Hey Rebels, my name is Matthew Barton. Welcome to the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. The Canadian Craft Brewers Association recently announced some big news: the creation of the Canada Beer Cup. Rick Dalmazzi is the executive director of the CCBA, and he's sitting down with us to talk about beer competitions and what you can expect from the brand new Canada Beer Cup. So let's get into it. Rick, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Matt. Nice to be here.
How's it going?
It's good. Things are good. We're excited.
Let's start off, for people who don't know who you are, who are you, and what do you do?
Okay, so I'm Rick Dalmazzi. Presently, I'm the executive director of the Canadian Craft Brewers Association. We've been around for a couple of years, and like most industry associations, what we do is represent our members. So our members are 1,200 and growing craft breweries across the country in every province and territory. And we try to do three things for them. We lobby on their behalf in Ottawa. A lot of beer issues, political issues, are provincial. So every province has its own industry association, its own craft brewers association. But we didn't have, until 2 years ago, a national voice. So we created this. I was asked to be the first executive director and was pretty excited about it. So we've been doing it for 2 years. So we do three things. We lobby in Ottawa for things that are national issues, things like excise taxes. So all breweries pay a tax, it's actually called an excise duty, on their production. So we just generally try to explain to politicians and staff how important craft breweries are to the Canadian economy. Secondly, we try to run programs, educational programs for our members to help them with their business excellence. A lot of our members make great beer, but there are a lot of young management teams out there. So we try to do things like interpret regulations for them, things that they have to do to comply with regulation or legislation. And the third thing we do is we promote Canadian craft beer nationally and internationally. So that's the mandate of the Canadian Craft Brewers Association. Prior to that, in 2014, I stumbled into the beer business accidentally and ended up running a craft brewery for 5 years, Sawdust City Brewery in Muskoka, Ontario.
Your journey through these craft beer pieces led you to this lobby piece. And I know for a lot of people, lobbyist has kind of this greasy connotation. But the way you explained it is kind of like, I'm here to serve and help my members and help businesses be more sustainable. When you said to me, we're going to help people understand regulations, to me, immediately, my first thought is, oh, you mean like the federal labeling requirements, which are coming in and are going to be kicking all of our asses if we don't get our ducks in a row.
That is exactly right. And it comes from the fact that, having run a craft brewery puts me in an interesting position. I'm not a career association executive. I actually understand what it takes to run a small craft brewery. It's hair on fire every day, right? You're trying to stay alive. So, yeah, in terms of lobbyists, I once saw an article saying that lobbyists are the second least admired profession in the world, right after used car salespeople. So yeah, the reputation is, you got sort of money in your pockets for politicians, and you're trying to get them to do things that, are detrimental to society, but great for your client. The good news is what I represent are 1,200 great little companies that are, making communities more vibrant economically. And every member of parliament knows the breweries in their riding, and they love them. So the story that I have to tell is really more education, making sure that everybody in Ottawa understands the contribution that our members make to the economy in Canada to small businesses. The line I always start with is name one other manufacturing sector that has put a new manufacturing facility in hundreds of communities across the country, a lot of them, small towns, in the last 10 years. You just can't do it. So we talk about the contributions that we make. That's an important part of lobbying. But secondly, yeah, we also try to continue to have the government understand that when you bring in new policies like new labeling requirements or the necessity to track your ingredients with new traceability requirements, both forward and backward. First of all, we say, look, you got to understand this is harder for a small company to do than a large company. So just be careful. Secondly, let's make sure these requirements are reasonable. And thirdly, let's give us enough time to do them. So we lobbied pretty hard during COVID. The new traceability requirements were supposed to come into effect right in the middle of COVID. And we, were one of the voices that were saying, well, let's pause on this. We're all just trying to stay alive. This is important. We get it. But let's just sort of push it out. And the government agreed to do that. The government actually wants small companies to succeed. And everybody loves craft beer. So we do actually have a lot of support in Ottawa. We just have to sort of back it up with numbers and sort of facts and figures and a little bit of emotion, but also some good decision-making information for the government. So that's what we try to do.
It sounds a lot like you do what I do, but in a little bit of a twist. I'm always bragging about our farmers here. I'm always bragging about our producers, and I'm trying to get consumers and beer lovers to understand the world-class barley that Saskatchewan produces. When our Hoppy Pollinator beer won gold at the Canadian Brewing Awards, I said, look, that's Saskatchewan honey. This isn't something that's abstract from somewhere else. It was literally in our own backyard that we got to find these special ingredients and taste these samples and shake the hands of the farmers. And I'm trying to create those linkages between urban and rural and tell that story and get people really excited about how we're not just taking things out of the ground or taking it from the honeybees or picking it off the plants and then shipping it away. We're taking it and we're malting it here, and now we're brewing it, and we've got this really rich ecosystem. And I'm trying to get people to understand how special it is, and it makes me feel a little bit better that there's somebody like you who gets it up at the higher level, because sometimes it's hard to understand or feel that connection.
Yeah, for sure. Not everybody's going to get it or not everybody's going to care, but enough people do. So we have to keep doing that. I always say, and I'm sure you do too, that the beer is great, but a lot of people love craft beer because of our culture, right? Because of the things that are important to us, like just, as you articulated. And the good news is that it often lines up with government, requirements or wishes or priorities. Right. So yeah, it's a great story to tell. There would be some lobbyist jobs that I probably wouldn't, take or, be proud to talk to my parents about. But this one is an easy one to tell, and we're all aligned. And yeah, we also talk about things like the other thing we're doing in craft beer is we're changing the beer drinking experience, right? We've had, I don't know how many decades of guzzling, crappy whatever, just for the purpose of getting a buzz and having some pretty awful sort of commercials and just not caring about what's being done. So we are changing that, right? It's quality over quantity. It's pairing the beer with food because you can and because that's a new experience. It's enjoying, the beer and drinking it purposefully at a tap room, overlooking where the beer was made, talking to the brewer. People love that. So we are different in terms of the beverage alcohol landscape. I've got friends, you know, that are in the spirits business, wine, whatever. But beer is freaking different, and craft beer is very different. And so that's a story we tell, and we don't get any pushback. People love that story. So now the government just has to translate that into continued financial support for us, and helping us, you know, where they can. I mean, the fact of the matter is right now, the government is getting pounded by every industry for help and individuals for help, you know, so we have to be realistic. But lobbying is a sort of a law. You got to play the long game. It's a long-term thing, right? It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's, you know, so anyway, that's the deal.
I feel like what you just said really segues nicely into the next discussion, which is about the Canada Beer Cup. It sounds like if you're building all these pieces, once you have that robust ecosystem, it's time to really celebrate and recognize the people who are doing really good things within that ecosystem. Does that follow for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone loves contests. Everyone loves to sort of show off the product of their hard work. Well, not everyone, but you know, I do. Um, and you know, if you can be rewarded for it, that's great. But you know, in talking to Mark at your company, you guys won a great award at the Canadian Brewing Awards. You know, he was pretty humble about it, which, you know, it was a little surprising for Mark, but anyway, no, just kidding, just kidding. But you know, it's a cool honor, right? It's a cool honor. So, but I will admit we're sort of we've got a couple of objectives for the Canada Beer Cup. So number one, yes, to celebrate the innovation, the great beer that we have in Canada, but also secondly, it's a bit of a coming out party. We need to announce to the rest of the world that our beer in Canada now stacks up. And the problem is you travel internationally and we just don't get the recognition that we deserve in Canada. And maybe it's because we're Canadians and we don't pound our chest. So one of the things we're doing with the Canada Beer Cup is we're going to use it as a platform to beat our chest internationally. And you know, we've got some ways that that's going to happen. So yeah, it is to celebrate our own beer. It's to reward and award people that deserve it, but it's also to help let the rest of the world know how good our brewers are, how good our breweries are, how good our beer is.
Is it too much of a stretch to think that the way people look at Canadian hockey is the way they should look at Canadian craft beer? I mean, you go out into the international stage, you go to the Olympics. When it comes to hockey, people know Canadians aren't screwing around. I want to know if it's possible for people to get to that same headspace when it comes to beer.
So I'm with you on that. And it's one of the reasons why we called it the Canada Beer Cup, because it's going to be kind of a bit of a play on the Stanley Cup. So if we can get the rest of the world to say, oh yeah, I know Canadian craft beer, and if we can, you know, have them equate it to our hockey excellence, that would be, you know, that's a lofty goal. But I like it. I like it. So yeah, but the thing is, we deserve it, and you gotta proactively do it. So what we're doing for the first time in Canada, just to give you a couple of examples of how we're doing this, we're bringing in, and when I say we, I should start by saying that Stephen Beaumont, who's pretty well known in our industry and arguably the most well-known Canadian beer expert internationally. There may be some others that would argue with that, but that's fine. I think you could make that case. He judges beer competitions all over the world, and he knows how these things work. We have never invited an international judge, as far as I know, to a Canadian beer competition. So Stephen has reached out into his network, and when we announced the competition, he was, I don't want to say overwhelmed, but he had more interest than he could deal with from judges from, you know, other countries wanting to come and taste our beer. And so we've got confirmations from judges from the UK, Italy, the USA. And so what happens is these judges are also important beer writers in their own geographies. So they come to Canada, we show them a good time, they taste awesome beer, they go back to their countries and say, you know what, I just tasted some freaking awesome beer in Canada. And they write about it, and now all of a sudden, oh, okay, so Canada's doing some pretty good beer. You know, there is beer tourism. So anyway, it starts to swell, right? The word starts to get out there, and so that's a really important component of this. And Stephen Beaumont's, you know, taken this, and we're taking advantage of the reputation he has around the world, the relationships he has with these judges. So we're pretty excited about that piece of it.
We keep talking about how we want Saskatchewan to be a craft beer mecca. If you're plugged into craft beer, we want people to say, hey, I've been to Saskatchewan. You know, the way they kind of talk about the Seattle scene or San Francisco scene.
Yeah.
We want them to think, when it comes to Canadian beer, hey, Saskatchewan, they punch above their weight. Small but mighty.
Yeah, so that's great. And every province should want to do that, and we want to do that at the national level. So let me tell you about another thing that we are doing, and this is actually something that Stephen Beaumont came up with, and I love it. So his belief is that one of the ways we can get the rest of the world to pay attention to us is to have our own unique Canadian style of beer. So he would say, you know, if you think about German beer, you might think of a couple of different styles that you equate with, you know, a typical or a popular German style beer, right? You might also think of, if you're thinking of a Belgian beer, you might think of, you know, sort of the flavors of the Belgian beers and styles. And you can do that, you know, in other countries of the world. But if you ask someone, maybe even in Canada, you know, when you think about a Canadian beer, what style comes to mind? What's the classic, typical Canadian beer? And, you know, there's not really one. You know, Stephen would say that back in the day, it might be something called a golden ale. But then that makes me think of Molson Golden Ale. I don't really want to go there. Although, you know, I consumed enough of it in my younger days. But anyway, so the point is this competition, like most beer competitions, is going to have multiple different style groups, 70 different style categories, in fact. But we're going to have one feature one. It's called the Canadian style beer. And we're going to challenge brewers to come up with a style of beer that defines the Canadian style and write a little essay as to why they think that is. So if we come up with, we're going to pick the best one, the judges will, and that will be potentially will describe the Canadian beer style. And then we like to sort of anoint that as the Canadian beer style, and then challenge breweries in future years to make the best Canadian style beer based on that style. So we'll see how it goes. It's pretty exciting. It's sort of an innovation. And if we can actually define a Canadian beer style, I think that'd be sort of cool.
I feel like you just threw the gauntlet down in front of us, because I'm a journalist by trade. I'm a wordsmith and a writer, and I will write the heck out of our submission and our essay. I will crush it so bad. I will make everybody look like they were still tying their shoes. I want to win that so bad. I want that essay to just nail it.
And that is exactly what I'm counting on, what we're counting on, right? We want people to get behind this. That's the beauty of our industry, right? We feel so much ownership for the things that we do, that we're associated with. In small towns, when a craft brewery appears, the people own the brewery, right? It's their brewery. They're proud of it. They bring people from all over. You know, they bring their relatives. They bring their mother and father. It's my brewery. This is my beer. Like if I tried to, and I talked to the government about this, I once came up with an estimate of how many people walk through the door, tourists, seasonal residents, and locals walk through the door every year of all 1,200, you know, craft breweries. This is tourism and you know, economics that didn't even exist 10 years ago. So anyway, you know, it's just one of the beauties of our industry. So I will look forward to Rebellion's submission and Matt Barton's description of why it should win.
Can we swear?
You mean right now, you and I? It's your show, man. You set the rules.
Oh, no, I mean in the essay. We might have to get a little spicy.
Oh, do that. Come on. This is the craft brewing business, right? So we're passionate about this stuff. That's why it's so much fun.
Rick, I love everything you've kind of set out for me on the table here. If people want to learn more, where should they go?
Okay, so CanadaBeerCup.com is the website. It describes the competition, it profiles the judges, it gives a brewery and a brew team or whoever is doing the submission everything they need to know. You jump from there to the entries platform. It's all very straightforward. And if it's not, you can just send an email to info@Canada Beer Cup. But so far, it's been pretty slick.
That's awesome. Man, thank you for your time today. It's been great talking to you.
Well, I've enjoyed it too. And I'm going to be looking forward to the pros around your or Rebellion submission to the Canadian beer style.
Deadly. Rebels, thanks for listening today. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, be sure to join us on our brand new Facebook group page, the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. I'm also proud to let you know we're members of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. It's a one-stop shop for tons of locally produced shows from across our province. You can find them at saskpodcastnetwork.com. I'm going to include in the show notes all links to Canada Beer Cup and Rick Dalmazzi so you can find out more. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Untappd so you don't miss out on the latest in Sask craft beer news. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.